Hi everyone, welcome to the Prime View. In this episode, we are delighted to welcome Shahar Fogel, who is co-founder and CEO at Rookout, a developer-first platform that collects data and troubleshoots issues in production and also in cloud-native applications. Shahar, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's a great pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Dana. It's my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, last time that I had conversation with Rookout, it was with Liran Haimovich. And during that conversation, we mainly talked about live debugging. But what I've noticed in these couple of months, you've done lots of updates and built a feature, a new product called live logging. If you could tell us more about the reason why you built the product and what is the unique value that it adds to your customers.
Sure. So basically, our live logger solution is something we released a few months ago, and basically it's part of our entire dynamic observability suite. So if you think about the things and the ways that developers work, usually you've discussed, Liran, the live debugger and the ability to add logs, metrics, and traces on the fly without the need to write code, without the need for redeployments. But that's kind of for the case where you don't have the data, you want it instantaneously, you just click a button, get the data you need, understand what's going on, and resolve it. But in many instances, the developers already wrote these logs. Mm-hmm. They've wrote it in their logging libraries, they already put it in the code, but because the application is being deployed to many types of environments, so some of them development environments, staging, QA, pre-production, and also production, developers and all, ops and engineering needs to manage their costs. So they play with the log verbosity in each environment. So there are many types of log verbosities. Usually, the most granular ones are in development phase where they need to see everything. But when they push it to production, they reduce the verbosity level. And because, to save the cost and to save the noise and everything. But they already have the logs there. But if something happens in production, they're not able to see the data that is flowing there because the verbosity is turned off. So basically, the live logger product that we developed in Rookout enables the developers to turn off and on and off kind of, the flashlight on the verbosity level to switch, debug mode or info mode wherever and whenever they want, and also kind of to filter the types of data, the types of logs that are coming in, whether it's by, the username, the session name, the URL, whatever is relevant and contextual to what they're investigating. They can switch it on, get the logs that they already have in their environments, in their production environments on the fly, then switch it off. It doesn't affect cost, it doesn't affect performance, and basically it enables them kind of to, as I said, shed a light on what they already have. If they don't have it in their existing logging libraries, they can use the live debugger to add it as new log lines or traces or metrics.
We all know that scaling logging can be very expensive. So how specifically does that work? Does that part work with Rookout, right? So do companies pay as they scale? Can they scale up and scale down? And then same thing happens with payment. So what specifically is the model of cooperation with companies on that point?
So it's not paying by usage. It's paying. We charge by seats, and it depends on if you take the debugger or take only the logger or take them both. We have different pricing model that suits each need. But basically, it reduces the need to be constantly on. So you can continue to work with whatever you have with your existing libraries. You can continue to drive kind of your day-to-day software development lifecycle, but it gives you the ability to be dynamic in remote environments. So production, pre-production, distributed environments, wherever you're operating, you can get the data from there. So
Okay.
kind of a shift left momentum, which gives back the engineers the power to understand and to see what's actually going on.
Well, another question is about how easily it is to integrate your tool with the existing observability platforms that many companies already have in place, something like Log4j, Winston, Log4net, and so on and so forth. So how easily can companies integrate? Do they need to get rid of the existing platform to be able to use yours, or that is something that can be used collaboratively?
So Rookout is very easily integrated. You can with all our existing documentation and everything, within 15 minutes, you can install the agent and just go. Of course, you need to deploy it to wherever you want to deploy it, and that's kind of CI/CD processes and something which is not about our product, but more around our customers' infrastructure and the way they're distributed. But if you think about, you mentioned existing observability tools or the way that observability works today. And before that, I mentioned dynamic observability, which is what Rookout does. And with all the existing observability space, so where do we basically differentiate? So when we look at the observability space, basically it's a set of tools, and there's a lot of amazing players in the market like Datadog, New Relic, AppDynamics, all the big ones. But their notion is static. You have to pre-think and predefine everything you do. You need to think about where you want to place your logs and the metrics and the traces, and everything around the tool needs to be predefined. And kind of it's a paradox, because if you're pre-thinking where all the bugs are, so most likely you'll fix them beforehand. But when bugs occur, they usually occur where you didn't think where they are. And this is where the dynamic part of Rookout comes into play. With us, you don't have to write code or redeploy and do whatever. You just click a button, understand the context, getting the data that you need on the fly, removing it or keeping it running, do whatever you want dynamically. So, and we're seeing it also with our existing client base, that basically most of our clients have the existing observability solutions, but also buys Rookout in order to complement the need and the pain that they're having with kind of being able to be dynamic and save tremendous amount of time and effort in understanding and debugging production environments.
The market is using static observability tools, and now you have developed the dynamic one. So what is there to be done to shift the mindset on the market and leverage the new tools that are so much more efficient?
So I don't see it as a problem. I see it more as a challenge, and the challenge is basically market education. People are, as you said, they're used to logs, they're used to being, predefining their static observability tools, and they don't know that the dynamic observability tools exists. So, when we get to a client, when we get to a demo, when they come into our website, find us somehow. There's always kind of the jaw-dropping wow moment, like, how didn't this exist until today? This is amazing. It can solve so many issues. Of course, there are companies who are kind of more traditional, and we're okay with the ways that we work, or we're agile, or whatever, or the release times are very short. Different scenarios, but the majority of the enterprises, the companies that we're talking to, everyone is feeling this pain. Everyone that we, of course, supports their tech stack, and it's just a matter of time until it will become the new standard. If you think 3 or 5 years ahead, people will say basically how did we work without that? So that's kind of our vision, to be the standard for that.
Maturity and security is another issue that many companies might have, since Rookout is the new company, it's a startup company. So tell us, how do you address those questions? And how do you make sure that there is no trust issue, since the tool that companies integrate, it has the access to the core of any application, to production stage, and actually to every other stage available there. So how do you tackle these questions?
So threefold. First of all, the team are all, not all, but the majority of us, for sure the R&D team, and also marketing and sales and management are ex-cybersecurity people. So, the way that we implement the product is by taking kind of the cyber mindset and attributing it to the DevOps space. So this is kind of the whole magic of how Rookout works and how it manipulates the memory and runtime. So this is kind of our background in developing the product. Secondly, around security is certification. So we're SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, HIPAA, ISO 27001. We've passed all the certification needed for security because security is kind of course, with the value that we bring, and stability. Security is the third pillar of importance for our product. As you mentioned, it's going to production environment. And third is track record. So, we're already deployed in dozens of enterprises, Fortune 100 enterprises, all the way from Fortune 100 to small startups, financial institutions, banks, Santander Bank, Amdocs, Adobe, Informatica, NICE, lots and lots of big public companies that we had to go through very rigorous security audits. And we're always passing them, and this is the way the product works for them, kind of to reduce the pressure, reduce the concern around security. So we don't see that as a hurdle in our way to kind of being adopted within enterprises.
Well, I've noticed that Rookout is a participant and also sponsor of a KubeCon that is happening this month. And since we all know that Kubernetes is one of the most complex software, open software, and at the same time, the most promising one. So tell us more, how does your platform and how does your tool help your customers navigate in that technology?
Sure. So as you mentioned, Kubernetes adoption is large and it's on the rise, and looking forward at the trends and the way we see the industry working, it's going towards a modernized application, distributed application, whether it's containers, Kubernetes, serverless, the whole kind of distributed environments. And of course, we support it. We support it because A, it's important to support it, and B, this is where the main pains of these companies are arising. So if in the past, we used to write code, we as engineers used to write code and place it on the machine next to us, today we're writing much smaller chunks of code and pushing it to the CI/CD, and then it's distributed. And you don't know where it is, you don't know how it's behaving. It's very, very difficult to replicate environments or scenarios on your local computer. There are some tools to, like Minikube and stuff, to replicate a cluster on your computer, but in reality, it never works. Once you deploy even to development environment and staging environment, which is distributed, you don't know how much memory, you don't know how much RAM, external dependencies and service mesh, APIs, everything around that is complicated. And the existing, this world, the Kubernetes world, has gone a lot and gave a lot of opportunities to enterprises to be more agile, to be more flexible, and to support their customers better. But all of the tools that have been built mostly for DevOps, for ops. So how do you manage the infrastructure? How do you mitigate crises? How do you roll back? Things like that. But the engineers kept on working with the same existing tool set that they have, which is IDEs and logs, which are not enough. You have to understand the traces. You have to understand which pod something happened. The memory increase, you see it on Datadog, but why did it happen exactly there? What's the logic? Which version is running on that machine? How is it behaving? How is it communicating between different Kubernetes pods? So, and this is kind of the main the main or the biggest chunk of usage in Rookout are in these environments. So not only in Kubernetes environments in production, but the same challenges that engineers have in production, they have it also in pre-production and staging. And in order to solve that, they're using Rookout also in closer environments to understand faster, get the data in a click of a button, and move on.
And do you have anything new that you're announcing at the event to help the Kubernetes users?
Yeah, so we have kind of two announcements which are kind of bundled together, but not really not really connected. One is a new feature within the platform for cloud native debug session. So kind of getting the visual understanding of your entire cluster around Kubernetes, around your pods, what's happening in your cluster in general, in relation to the application and the code, and also kind of giving you the experience, the visual experience of expanding or deep diving into a specific pod in order to understand what's going on. So to understand where requests are coming from, where are they going, how the data is behaving. So kind of like if you think about the Datadog UI or the Datadog experience, which is very visual. So to mix that with the capabilities that Rookout gives. So this is kind of one part of the announcement. And the second part of the announcement is the support in Golang, which is very significant for CNCF, for the more modern enterprises which are developing cloud native application. This is kind of a runtime or language that is being used more and more, and we'll release the support in Golang in KubeCon, and hopefully lots of engineers who are developing in Go and feeling the pain can use it and gain a lot of value from us.
So my next question is about innovations. If you could elaborate a little bit about the innovation process at your company, since we can see that you had Live Debugger and now you have Live Logger. So how do you specifically come with ideas, right, to build new tools, new solutions that will help the industry and the enterprises and all size companies, right, different size companies navigate their applications?
So I think it's two of them mixed together always. If you're building stuff that no one cares or needs, it's irrelevant. Or if you're building things for a specific client that ask you something and no one else can use it, that's also irrelevant. So we always kind of on one ear listening to the industry, understanding the trends, the competition or the incumbents or existing big players. What are they doing? How are they behaving? And also, what's the trends in the industry? And also, we have a very significant client base. We're constantly listening to them, where their pain points are, how are they dealing with their software development lifecycle, what are their challenges, what are their pains, and taking these two together, we're building our roadmap in order to kind of, promote and innovation, of course, and delivering new features and new product, and kind of driving always towards our vision to give dynamic observability to engineering teams, and to give more and more capabilities that will enable them to just click a button and get the data they need in various aspects of the software development lifecycle.
Well, I really like these points about carefully listening to your customers and also listening to and following the industry trends that help you stay up to date, right, with your tools and your solutions. Another thing that is important to follow are your competitors. So at Rookout, what do you feel is your unique value proposition to your customers comparing to the other players on the market?
So I will address it threefold. One, as we've spoken before, we talked about it before. Kind of our biggest competition is the way people work today. We need to educate the market. We need to explain why we're better than what they're doing today, how they can use us to get to the root cause faster, save 80% of their debugging time, be more agile, increase productivity and velocity of their engineering teams from their existing methods. So that's kind of the major part of the competition today, the status quo. Second point is the big players. So the big observability players. Today, the observability, log aggregators, everyone. Today, we're a completely complementary solution. So we're not really competing with them. We're working collaboratively with App Dynamics and integrations with Datadog, and now we're looking with New Relic and other players, Azure and AWS. We're a capability that they don't give, and they're working with us because they know that their client needs a solution like us. What they'll do in the future, I don't know, but for today, we're working very very closely and very collaboratively. In terms of companies or newer companies that are building products that are similar to us, they're much smaller than us. Their product is kind of different to what we built in terms of, you mentioned before, security, stability, experience of the product. So, basically we see our solution as a very complete solution, very stable and mature solution that, I invite everyone to try us, to try our competition, and then decide. So far, it's working well for us.
Well, that collaborative part of working on the market resonates really well with me, and it reminds me of the blue ocean theory, where we are finding our specific niche on the market and deliver on the promise to our customers. That is actually a great point here. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that would be the great note to end on. Thanks, Shahar, for your time. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Dana, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.